Microphone check. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. Boom. All right, we're good. Hola, welcome, good people. I am Serial Sensei, host of the Dojo Talk Podcast. This isn't a numbered episode, so I'm not going to say welcome to episode 160, whatever number we're on. This is kind of a loosey episode. This is going to be me just kind of speaking into the void and addressing an announcement that I made on our previous episode, which was episode 167, if I remember correctly, covering UFC 246, the Conor McGregor and Donald Cerrone fight. So please give that a listen if you have not. But if you listen to that episode, and if you can read the title of this podcast, you will have realized that, as I mentioned on the last episode, the Dojo Talk Podcast will be ending this year. This will be the last year of the podcast. This was a decision that it took me some time to make, man. I wrestled around with this for quite a bit. And this episode is just gonna be me just kind of explaining how I got to that point. The thought process. Maybe if you are a podcaster, you might find this episode somewhat useful. Just give you the mind of a podcaster, kind of what it's like to run a show. And I don't know, maybe it'll help somebody out. Maybe it's not. Maybe I just might be just yelling into the void. But it is what it is. But I just wanted to come in and kind of further explain kind of what led up to my decision to ultimately end this podcast. But before I get to those details, real quick, just quick bullet points that I kind of addressed the last episode, but I'm just going to reiterate them real quick. As I stated on the last episode when I made the announcement, this will not be a instant ending. It's not, I'm not just going to stop it literally right after you hear this and it's just going to be over. We're going to kind of make it a gradual kind of exit, I guess, if you will. I didn't want to just kind of leave abruptly and just walk out, just walk out the dojo and close the doors. So what we're going to do is, normally if you listen to this podcast, we cover fights all the time, man. Every week, somebody's fighting, we're covering it, and that's whether it be UFC, boxing, kickboxing, it doesn't matter. But as a part of this kind of closing, we're just going to focus on pretty much the pay-per-views for the UFC, which means the next time you guys hear from us will be the week of February 8th, which is the John Jones versus Dominic Reyes fight, UFC 247. After that, you'll hear from us again the weekend of March 7th, which is UFC 248, Adesanya versus Romero. And the last fight that we'll cover will be UFC 249, the Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. Knock on wood, hopefully we get that fight on April 18th. And then after that episode of that pay-per-view, we'll do a final episode. I won't announce what it is, but me and the Anti-Cool have kind of already talked it out. We'll do one final episode that following week. I'll just tell you it'll be another list episode, kind of like how we did our pound for pound list. We'll have another list episode, and I think it's something fitting to kind of end the podcast on, because I think it's a list that I don't think we've ever really talked about on the podcast. Some we've probably mentioned maybe in passing here and there, but it'll be a list kind of episode. But to see what the list is, of course, you'll have to listen up until when that is released. So that's pretty much how the rest of this is going to go. And then after that episode, that'll most likely be the last episode of the Dojo Talk podcast. The doors will be closing after that. Will the show come back? Maybe. I'm not sure. If it does come back, it won't be in this same format. I'll have to change it. It'll probably be a lot more shorter and compact. But let me get into that. So I guess real quick, I'm gonna just do a quick Dojo Talk history of sequence of events, I guess, whatever. I'm going to ramble a lot in this episode. I'm sorry. I'm going to ramble a lot. I didn't really prepare this. Just going off the cuff. But, like, this podcast originally was just a random idea I had that was floating around. I had in my head for a long time, really, before I decided to do it. I was listening to podcasts. I finally got into podcasts, like, a couple years maybe before that. I was kind of late. I feel like I was late to the podcast game in terms of listening to them. But I started listening to them. I became a fan. I kind of listened to some of the major ones. Probably I listened to Joe Rogan, even though I don't listen to him much anymore. But he was one of the first ones I started listening to. Shout out to Double D's, man. D-Respect and Dominic Robron. That's like my favorite podcast ever. So listening to podcasts like that, it was kind of an influence. Like, it kind of made me want to do my own podcast, but I didn't want to cover what everybody else was covering. Like, I don't really want to talk about pop culture because I don't care about pop culture. I knew I kind of just wanted to do fights. Like, I love combat sports. It's a passion. I watch MMA. I watch, boxing. This podcast helped me get a lot more into boxing thanks to the Anti-Cool. Kickboxing, all that. Like, I knew I wanted to talk about fights, but couldn't talk about fights by myself. At least I didn't want to. So way back when, hopped on Tumblr. The Anti-Cool was one of the first people I'd ever followed on Tumblr, and this was way back in the day, man. I can't even really remember the year, but it was way back in the day, and he seemed to be one of the most knowledgeable people in terms of combat sports that I knew of around the internet. So literally, when I had the idea to start the podcast, I just messaged him like, "Hey, about to start a podcast talking about fights. Want to talk about fights with me?" He said, "All right, let's do it." And then that was kind of just what we did. And I think the first card we covered was UFC. Let me see if I can look this up real quick. It was UFC 2. Was it 207? I know it was a Ronda Rousey fight. I can't remember. I want to say UFC 207 was the first card I think that we covered when Amanda Nunes beat the bricks off of poor Ronda Rousey. I think that was the first card we covered. But yeah, it pretty much rolled from there. And like, originally my plan was just to I just want to see, like, can I even get to like 20 episodes? Because I'm new to podcasting, don't really know what I'm doing. Just want to see if I can halfway figure this out. If I can get to 20 episodes, I'll be happy. We made it to 20, had some bumps and bruises along the way. I blame my fault for a lot of the audio in the first bulk of our episodes not being really good. Because of the way I was recording it, but learning process, so on and so forth. So made it through that. Eventually everything started sounding better. Started to get more of a structure to the show. Like, I was literally like writing out structures and like how I wanted to segment the show, and eventually we developed chemistry and things start rolling. We get consistent. We're recording every week. We start meeting. I say meeting, but kind of gaining traction along the way, extending our little family. Shout outs to Joey and Stokes, who are kind of like if you listen to our podcast, I always call them like they're like our podcast roommates. Anytime we need to fill it on an episode, we just call one of them, see if they can make it. And normally, they can come through. So they've been pretty much a part of this too since the beginning. But no, like it just went on for 3 years. We had a lot of good times, man. Shout outs to Stokes once again, man. He was heavily responsible, or literally, I might as well say solely responsible for us being able to do the interview that we did with Jose Shorty Torres. Shout outs to him. First time we got a chance to interview a professional fighter. It was a really great episode. Then not shortly after that interview, like Torres ended up making it to the UFC. And it was cool, man. It was a great time. We had some good times, man. And I felt like the chemistry got better. And I started figuring things out more, adjusting the show here and there. And I felt like we hit a good stride, and we had a nice 3-year kind of run. A lot of fun episodes, a lot of fun times, being able to kind of interact and network with different people, doing mailbag episodes where I finally got involved in like the Twitter world and got people to send in questions. You know, had to harass and tag them, but you know, people were willing to cooperate, which I appreciated. But you know, it was fun, man. Podcasting was a good way for me to turn a hobby into something like tangible. You know, being able to talk about the fights that I watch all the time, every day, all day. It was a good outlet. It was a good way for me to really get comfortable just talking in front of a microphone. I'm not a very social person whatsoever, but you know, helped me polish up my microphone skills. It was a good tool to network. Podcasting got me a lot of dope opportunities. Shout out to the Technical Foul podcast. Out there in Milwaukee. We have a little working relationship. I post articles on their websites for most of the UFC major pay-per-views. So yeah, like podcasting it's gotten me a lot. It got me more than what I thought it would. Like I didn't really have any expectations coming into this, and I got a lot out of it. And I think eventually, after the 3 years, things are going good. We're still adjusting formats, but everything's running smooth, and I felt like we really did hit a groove within like the last year and a half. Like I felt like that's some of like our best work, where audio quality is up to par, and we kind of had everything figured out in terms of the show structure, and things were running. Things were running pretty well. But I guess at some point, I would say I'm getting a little older, 30 years old now. I know in the grand scheme of things that's not too old, but you know, I turned 30 years old, and I guess like my priorities have slowly started to change. Podcasting, for anybody who maybe wants to get into it, or if you just want to know maybe like what kind of goes on like behind the scenes, it's work, man. Like it's work. Don't get me wrong, like it's fun. I love talking about fights and watching fights, but keep in mind like this is something that we do and on our level, because we're not a Joe Rogan, we're not a Joe Budden podcast on Spotify. Like we don't get paid for this. Like this is literally just kind of it's like a passion project. Like we just love talking about fights. We love combat sports, so we get together every week and we watch fights, stay up to the wee hours of the night and in the morning watching fights, and we're recording early in the morning. Or sometimes I think one time after the McGregor Nurmagomedov fight, like we literally recorded right after the pay-per-view was over, so we're recording a podcast at midnight and talking until like 2 in the morning. Like it's work, man. Like it really is work. It's a lot of work that goes into it, especially when you're watching fights. You got to watch fights. You got to break down. You got to break down the fight, so you got to watch it over and over, break down footage, and and then editing it, recording it, distributing it, trying to promote it. Like it's work. It's work. I say all that to say that it's work. Work that you don't get paid for, but it's just literally just something you just love to do. But like I said, one of the major, I guess I'll transition now into what kind of led me into deciding to end it. It was hard because I went back and forth in my head. Shout outs to my homie Jay from out there in Florida. Me and him had a nice conversation when I told him I was thinking about ending it, and he gave me a few ideas. But it basically came down to me having to weigh the pros and cons of me stepping away versus me staying. And it was hard. Like, for one, we had a nice run. Like, I think we were really good on being consistent. Like, for 3 years, we put out episodes pretty much every week, minus a few breaks here and there. But for the most part, every week, even when there was no UFC, we were putting out content. So I thought we did great on that front of being consistent. Another thing that maybe people don't really care about, and this is cool, but I didn't really even think about this much until like the other day. Like we probably were one of the few like minority podcasts that cover combat sports. And for some people that might not mean anything, whatever. I'm not really going to get into that, but that's a pretty big deal. Not that we're like famous or well known or anything, but it's good to have other voices. Other voices speaking on the sport, other cultures covering the sport, because I think we offer a different perspective. So I think our voices were pretty important. Like I said, not to say that we're any grand authority or we're famous, but I think that was an important part of what we did. And most importantly, I thought we did a great job of really delivering like quality content. And like I said, we covered the UFC, but we really took time to cover everything. Like we wanted to really put people on game. If there was a good fight in Bellator, just because Bellator isn't the number one organization doesn't mean we didn't think you should know about the fight. So we wanted to really cover everything, man. So we talked about boxing, kickboxing, other smaller MMA organizations, really just trying to educate people, and really just wanted to get people just really deep and entrenched into the fight game as we were. So I felt like if you did listen to us, that you got that out of it. I hope you at least pulled that out of it. I hope that you listened to our podcast, probably heard a name that you might not have been familiar with, and you went to look up their fights. And hopefully you became a fan of that person. Or even if you didn't become a fan, like you were just more aware now. When you hear that name, for example, like the Anti-Cool was talking about Petr Yan way before Petr Yan was in the UFC. Felt like he was kind of better at picking out prospects. I was trying to put people on game with Tom Duquesnoy, and then he ended up retiring after like 3 fights. But, point being, I thought we did a good job of trying to educate fans and anybody who listened really about the fight game and about any combat sports athlete, regardless of what their sport was, whether it be a boxer, kickboxer, Muay Thai fighter, MMA fighter. I thought we did a good job of that. So, it's kind of hard to walk away from that because I felt like we did have a good thing going. But ultimately, there were a multitude of things that kind of led to me deciding to end this, and I think one of the biggest things was, as I mentioned, like podcasting is a lot of work, and it can be very time consuming. Like, come home from work on a Saturday, might have a couple hours to myself, but you all know Saturday's fight day, and we watch from the prelims to the to the main card. So prelims might start around 6:37. So from 6:30 up until the main card ends, that's probably about midnight, maybe later, depending on if a fight goes to like decision or somebody gets knocked out or whatever. So we're watching fights for that long, waking up early Sunday morning because we normally record on Sundays to record. Wake up around 7, rewatch the fights, and then record at 9. And in between that, got to take notes, got to rewatch fights. Like it's definitely a lot of work, and then I have to edit, and it was really time consuming. And there are other, like I said, my priorities are just kind of changing. And if you know me, if you paid attention to this podcast, I love to write, and that's kind of what I want to do with my life, and I really want to go like all in with that. And I knew if I was gonna go all in, that I was gonna have to start reprioritizing and reorganizing things, and I had to be really conscious of my time and how I was spending it and what I was spending it on. And podcasting, I was reluctant to do it, but I knew in the back of my head, like, if I'm really gonna go all in with this writing the way that I want to, this might have to be something that I cut. And like I said, I didn't want to do it, but my passion for writing heavily outweighs my passion for podcasting or combat sports. Like, writing is kind of, that's literally what I do and what I want to do with my life. So I had to make a tough decision, and it was I said that just the amount of time it takes to really be consistent with podcasts. I wanted to put that time and effort into writing and other like creative endeavors and other things that I want to do that I will hopefully in the future get paid to do. So yeah, time constraint was a big part of why I chose to end it, because I just wanted to put my time and effort into other things. And it's not to say that, like I said, this show might not come back, but if it does, it'll have to be rebranded into something a bit more tight and compact. And another, I guess, reason chose to end it. It was kind of like a gut feeling. They say your gut doesn't lie to you, man. Like when your gut tells you you need to do something, and believe, I fought against it. I was trying not to listen to it, but I could feel it slowly over the last about 5-6 months, which is kind of how long I've been really stewing on this. That it was a little voice telling me like you might have to let this go. Like there are other things you want to do with your life, and this might have to get chopped. This might not be able to make it. And I tried to ignore that voice, but it stayed there. It never left. And after a while, it's like, all right, this voice hasn't left yet, man. My gut is still telling me to do this, and gut's normally never wrong. It normally will lead you into the right direction. So I listened to it. I keep saying this word, but it really is the main reason kind of why I'm choosing to end this. It really is like priorities, like outside of writing. There's other like life things that I want to do. Like I said, at 30, I've just become a lot more, what's the word? A lot more aware and conscious of my time and how I'm spending my time and what I do with my time. And I want to make my time count as much as possible. Whether that be writing, just kind of living life, because I got a lot of life I need to live. I need to have some new experiences, get out a little more. I mention it here and there on the podcast, but you know, I've had a pretty transformative, I guess, personal life, you know, with weight loss and mental health, a lot going on. And I really want to kind of just focus on really just building myself up. And I need time to do that. I need time away from some of the other things that I may enjoy doing, because I need to put all of that energy into kind of build myself up, getting some life experiences, bettering myself, and writing. I can't hammer that point enough, because that's, like I said, that's what I want to do. And it's also hard because writing is another thing that is time consuming. Like, I have a book out, Oddball Chronicles, on Amazon if you would like to buy. $8.99 for a physical, 99 cents for a digital. Working on volume 2 I ain't say literally as we speak, but I've been working on that for the last couple of days. My goal is to have that out by the end of the year. I'm working really hard on that. But writing is also, like podcasting, it's very time consuming. It can be mentally draining. And in order for me, like I said, to go as hard with writing as I want to, I need time. It got to the point where I would wake up to do podcast episodes, and it's like, man, we recorded for 2 hours, 3 hours. Lord, sometimes sometimes it didn't happen all the time, but there were times we might almost hit like 4 hours, and I had to cut the episode into 2. But like, there were just moments where I was like, man, I love this, recording and all, but that could have been 4 hours writing. I could have got a lot done. I could have used that 4 hours for something else. And once that thought started creeping in my head, when when that little voice inside me was telling me, like, you could have written so much in that 4 hours instead of recording. That voice started to get louder, and because writing is like a number, it's a higher priority. It's higher on the priority list. I was like, yeah, you're right. I could have been right. But, like, I love podcasting. I didn't want to just stop it, but I think I've just kind of hit the point where writing is just more of a priority. And I guess another reason I decided to end it was I think I got everything out of this that I wanted to. Like I said, when we first started this podcast, I didn't really have any expectations. Wasn't expecting to be famous. None of that. Just wanted to talk about some fights. Like I said, if I could make it 20 episodes, cool. Here we are, the last one we did was 167. 3 years later, still out here. Like, I got a chance to record over 100 episodes. I got a chance to interview a professional fighter. I got a chance to put my college degree to work somewhat. Got to use those skills I learned in college with this podcast. Bettered my microphone skills, which hopefully I'll still end up using. But yeah, I felt content. Like, as hard as it was to kind of come to the decision to end it, I felt content. Like, if I stopped right now, I'm okay. Like, I've got everything I think out of this that I wanted to. I literally just started off with a thought in my head. I made that thought come to life. I did it for 3 years. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm okay. It doesn't bother me that, like, we never got famous and all the things maybe I could have done better with the podcast. Sure, there are always ways to improve. There are always ways I probably could have done better promoting and growing the audience and so on and so forth. But, like, I'm good. Like, I think I got out of this what I wanted to. There's nothing else I really look back at it and have any regrets or anything about. Like, I'm good. I'm fine with what I got. And the only reason I didn't want to make it like an instant like closure is, for one, there are too many fights that, like, we have been waiting for a long time, a la Khabib and Tony, that I can't not talk about those when they happen. Thus, me extending the podcast for a little bit and just creating breaks in between, because there were fights that I wanted to talk about. So I couldn't end it just abruptly. But I got, so yeah, like I said, on top of priorities in life just changing and me wanting to really focus and hone in on my writing, because that's really what I want to do for the rest of my life, and other life priorities just kind of changing, me wanting to just do different things, kind of grow more as a person, just go out, get more life experience. That's kind of how I want to spend my time. And podcasting, unfortunately, I always listen to them, but I guess creating it, as of right now, I'll never say I'm done forever. I won't even really call this like a goodbye. More like a see you around. See you around. Like, I'm not going to quit this forever. But for now, it's just, I got out of this what I wanted. I think that chapter is closed for now. We can close that book. Put a little ribbon on it. And maybe it'll get opened again down the road. Maybe come back, do a little more. But for now, I'm good. I'm okay. I really just want to put all this focus and energy into writing and just making other changes in my life. Like I said, at 30, I've just been real. You get old. You start getting the old man thoughts. You get real reflective, kind of think about where you are, where you want to go. And like I said, podcasting was never like a career goal. Like, it was just a hobby. It was just something I love to do. I love combat sports, and I just wanted to talk about them. But it wasn't anything I envisioned doing for like the rest of my life. Not to say, like I said, not to say that I won't ever come back to it, but as of right now, shoot, your boy got dreams, man. Trying to becoming a full-time writer is hard work, and I know if I gonna make this happen, I gotta go all in. I can't half step. I gotta go all in, man. I really, really gotta go all in. I gotta be in the lab. I gotta be banging out work. I gotta make it happen. So anything that is unfortunately like gets in the way or takes away from that, I kind of have to step away from. But I enjoy the time that we've done this. Like I said, this isn't like a goodbye episode because we still got a few episodes to go after this because the other pay-per-views and stuff we're going to cover. But no, I just wanted to give a little further explanation as to why I decided to end it. It like I said, it really just boils down to life priorities just changing and just other things I really want to focus on and put my time and energy into. Because I really want this writing thing to take off, and I have a bunch of just other creative endeavors I want to work on, and those things are going to take a lot of time to do, and podcasting was taking that time away from me, and I had to pick one, and the writing for me is too important. That's going to win out 10 times out of 10, because that's literally what I want to do with my life. So yeah, I feel like anymore if I keep rambling I'll just be kind of talking in a circle. But nah, man, that's pretty much it. I don't know if this will help anybody out there, any fellow creatives. I guess I'll just say in closing that I'm okay with finality. Like, not everything is meant to go on forever and ever. It's perfectly okay to close the chapter on a book and just walk away. If you've gotten everything out of it you need to, it's cool to step away. It's okay to have an ending. It doesn't have to be one of these like TV shows that goes on for 80 seasons. Like, it's okay to put a, it's okay to put a stop to things. And I think once we finally hit that last episode, I'll be very content with it ending right there. And it doesn't mean like the end. Like, I just look at it more of moving on to something different. This is the last stop on this train, and I'm gonna get off, and I'm gonna get on another one, and I'm gonna ride that one until I get to where I need to go. And that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I'll emphasize this in later episodes, but like I said, just because of where I'll be ending this podcast doesn't mean I'm going to completely stop talking about fights. If you follow me on Twitter, @SerialSensei, I'll still be on there live tweeting fights as people get beat up. So if you still want to talk to me about fights, anybody on the Tumblr world, still be on there. I know I'm not on Tumblr as active as I used to be, but I'll still try to pop up on there every now and again. Run my mouth a little bit, but always gonna talk about fights. That's not leaving. Like, I'm always still gonna watch fights. I just can't take the time to record and talk about them anymore. I gotta put that creative energy. I'm gonna take everything that I learned from this podcasting experience and pour it into writing to be able to make my writing better and being a better, I don't know, entrepreneur, if you call it. I guess that's kind of the goal, the path I'm headed on. Because I'm doing this indie. I don't have any no help, no backing. It's just me, one-man band. But I'm gonna take all the experiences I got from this and pour it into my writing and get that to flourish, because that's the path I want to go on. But yeah, that's just pretty much all I got. But thank you guys for listening, man, and shout outs to the Anti-Cool for being with me on this journey for 3+ years. Not officially done yet. Got a few more stops to make. But it's coming to a close. Shout outs to Anti-Cool. Shout outs to Joey, Stokes, everybody, all the Tumblr people who were listening from day one, and new people who may have picked up along the way. But yeah, man, the train's coming to a stop soon, man. But the journey isn't ending. Like I said, it's not a goodbye, more like a see you around. 2020, man. Hopefully you'll see a lot more creative projects in terms of writing from me. And I'm really gonna go hard. Like, I'm really gonna go hard with this writing thing. This is It's all I want to do. I don't have no plan B. I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to sit at a desk for the rest of my life. Like, I'm going to pour everything I have into this, because that's what I want to do. That's it. I have no other. I don't care how long it takes. If I got to write until I'm 60 to pop off, then that's just what it's gonna be. Like, I'm really determined to make this work, and I'm willing to do whatever I need to make it pop off. So, but that's all I got, man. Thank you guys for listening. I'm Serial Sensei, host of the Dojo Talk Podcast. Be sure to tune in for our next couple episodes. Like I said, we'll be back following month for John Jones versus Dominic Reyes. Then for Adesanya versus Romero in March. Habib versus Tony in April. Final episode after the Habib-Tony card. And then that'll be it. We will close the curtains and bow out gracefully. But thank you guys for listening, man. I'm Serial Sensei, host of the Dojo Talk Podcast. Till next time, I will catch you guys later.